From the rugged shores of Corsica, a destiny was born. In 1769, a child of minor nobility entered the world, an outsider who would one day command an empire. By 1779, the young Napoleon Bonaparte was a student of war, devouring maps and military history by candlelight in a cold French academy, a mind being sharpened for the chaos to come. That chaos erupted in 1789. The French Revolution tore the old world apart, and in the anarchy, a path opened for men of talent and ruthlessness. At the Siege of Toulon in 1793, that talent was unleashed. A young artillery officer, Bonaparte, demonstrated his tactical genius, using his cannons with devastating precision to secure a vital victory for the Republic. He was no longer an unknown. 2 years later, when mobs threatened to topple the government in Paris, he answered, not with words, but with a whiff of grapeshot, saving the Directory and proving he was the master of the moment. With his military fame secured, he made his final move into the heart of power. In 1796, he married the elegant and well-connected Josephine de Beauharnais. The soldier had become a statesman. The rise was complete. The era of Napoleon had begun. With his name already echoing through Paris, General Napoleon Bonaparte's legend was forged in the fires of the Italian campaign. At the Battle of Lodi in 1796, he personally led his men in a desperate, courageous charge across a narrow bridge under withering fire, proving he was a soldier as much as a general. His ambition then turned east. In 1798, he stood before the pyramids, a modern conqueror in the land of pharaohs, his army dwarfed by the monuments of ages. It was here, while digging defenses in the sand, that his men unearthed a treasure greater than gold, the Rosetta Stone, a key that would unlock the lost language of ancient Egypt. Returning to France as a national hero, Napoleon saw a nation in political turmoil. He decided to act. In the tense coup of 18 Brumaire, he stormed the government with his loyal soldiers, dissolving the assembly and seizing control. The Republic was his to secure his power. He performed the impossible. In 1800, he led his army through the treacherous, snow-covered Alps, a feat of endurance and will. This gamble led him to the fields of Marengo, where his army faced annihilation. In a stroke of genius, he turned a certain defeat into a stunning victory. The battle was won, and with it, the path to absolute power was clear. Having seized power, Napoleon sought to build an empire not just of arms, but of order. In 1804, his vision for law was written into history, the Napoleonic Code, a rational system of civil law that would shape nations for centuries. But law was not enough. In a moment of supreme ambition, inside the hallowed walls of Notre Dame, he took the imperial crown and placed it on his own head. The Corsican outsider was now Napoleon I, Emperor of the French. His military genius reached its zenith the following year. At the Battle of Austerlitz, under a legendary sun that broke through the fog, he crushed the combined armies of Russia and Austria in his greatest victory. Yet, the seas remained unconquered. At the Battle of Trafalgar, Admiral Nelson's Royal Navy annihilated the French fleet, ensuring Britain's naval supremacy and confining Napoleon's empire to the continent. Undeterred, he focused on cementing his glory. In Paris, the foundations were laid for the Arc de Triomphe, a monument to the triumphs of his Grand Army. By 1807, his dominance was undeniable. On a raft in the middle of a river, he met the Tsar of Russia as an equal, redrawing the map of Europe. The emperor was at the height of his power, the master of the continent. At the height of his power, the seeds of Napoleon's downfall were sown. It began in Spain, the Spanish ulcer, where brutal guerrilla warfare bled his empire of men and resources. But a deeper sacrifice was made in the name of dynasty. In 1809, he divorced his beloved Josephine, trading love for an heir, a personal wound that mirrored the growing cracks in his empire. Then came the fatal mistake. In 1812, he marched his grand army, 500,000 strong, into the vast emptiness of Russia. He expected a decisive battle, but found only scorched earth and a burning Moscow, an apocalyptic trap that left his army without food or shelter. The retreat was a descent into hell. Winter, the true Russian general, descended with fury. Starving, freezing, and relentlessly pursued, the once invincible army was annihilated in the snow. This catastrophe emboldened his enemies. At the Battle of Leipzig, the Battle of Nations, a coalition of armies crushed the remnants of his forces. Defeated, Napoleon was exiled to the tiny island of Elba. The emperor was a prisoner. But the story was not over. In a final, audacious gamble, he escaped, landed in France, and began his 100 Days. The legend was back for one last stand. The 100 Days culminated in one final, desperate battle. On the muddy fields of Waterloo, the fate of Europe was decided. Napoleon hurled his legendary cavalry against the steadfast British infantry, who formed impenetrable squares of bayonets. The rain fell, the cannons roared, and an empire's last hope shattered against a wall of redcoats. The aftermath was a scene from a nightmare, a field of mud and blood, strewn with broken weapons and the bodies of the fallen. The Grand Army was no more. The dream of glory was dead. This time, there would be no return. A British warship carried him away, not to a comfortable exile, but to the end of the world street. Helena, a remote volcanic rock in the vast South Atlantic. The conqueror of Europe was now a prisoner of the ocean. For 6 years, he faded, his world shrinking to a damp, lonely house. In 1821, as the rain beat against the window, the man who had redrawn maps and crowned himself emperor drew his final breath. The storm that had raged across Europe for 2 decades was finally over. The legend, however, was just beginning.